right, for more on this story, you can click on to handelsblatt.com. That's the website of Germany's leading financial daily, or you can go to our very own website. You know the address. It's dwworld.de. All right, let's talk a little bit more about food and prices. And to do that, I'm joined by a man who knows this topic very well, Professor Harald von Witzke. He is with Humboldt University, a professor in agricultural economics. We just saw, Professor Witzke, an example of farmers who say that there's a huge disconnect on the exchanges right now. A lot of the traders, the people doing the trading, are not farmers themselves. Are traders the culprits here in this pricing problem we're seeing?
Agricultural commodity markets are very volatile. Small changes in supply and or demand can cause significant changes in market prices. And what we are seeing right now is a clear-cut deviation from the longer-term trend triggered by a crop failure in Russia and some other parts of the world.
So it feels like an asymmetrical shock here. We've got a shock in Russia and the Russia political system shutting down exports, and that's affecting the entire world.
That is a second effect is that politicians have tended in the past, when prices were very high, to restrict exports. We've seen that 2007, 2008, when prices were so very high that China, India, Argentina, and some other countries restricted exports. As a consequence, prices were even higher than without this policy.
All right, so you're saying the politicians are the bad guys in this?
The politicians tend to point the finger at speculators when prices are high, but in fact, it's all too often political decisions, trade restrictions that contribute to these price hikes.
All right, let's talk numbers a little bit before we do too much politician badgering right now. We've got a graphic we want to show people of just how prices have changed over the last decade. Prices for wheat were stable for much of the last decade. They spiked in 2008, Professor, as you were talking about. Now hovering for wheat around $370 a ton. Wheat prices increased by 80% just since June alone. Huge increases. And this has nothing, I want to emphasize this has nothing to do with supply and demand, does it?
It has to do with supply and demand. As we said earlier, there has been a crop failure, a reduced supply in Russia and some other parts of the world, and there has been political action which has restricted supply to international markets.
Okay, but Professor, just because there's been a bad harvest in Russia does not mean the rest of the world cannot be fed with grain and wheat. I mean, the prices have gone up astronomically. It doesn't make sense.
Prices have gone up more than one would expect, given that we have an ample supply in storage around the globe. However, the expectation is that countries and governments again do what they did 2007, 2008, that they restrict exports in order to supply their domestic populations with affordable food. As a consequence, there's less in international markets, the quantity is lower, and prices are even higher.
All right, so what we're ending up with is we want affordable food, but what's happening is we've got food prices that are actually going up as politicians try to protect their agricultural markets.
That's exactly what's happening, and it has very negative consequences for the poor and hungry of the world. We have 1 billion humans who are malnourished or who were malnourished in 2008. Those are humans who have $1.25 or the equivalent thereof every day in purchasing power. And if the price of food goes up significantly for these people, that can have disastrous consequences.
All right. Before we let you go, Professor von Witzke, what would you like to see happen then on these markets? Give me a quick answer.
Prices won't stay as high as they are because these high prices are an incentive for farmers around the world to produce more food, so prices will be down next year.
Okay, we're going to see if that happens. We'll have you here next year to see if that's happened, Professor.
I shall be glad to be here.
All right, thank you very much for talking with us today.